often you're fighting against a program you didn't create. You're in a situation where you're overcoming yourself. And when it comes to spiritual affairs, all people are really trying to do is work out who they are and how they are. So we'll talk about it in the class where we say the mother's right brain creates the child's right brain. Yeah. So the child hasn't come into this world. The child has no memories yet of anything in this world. But whilst it goes through the pregnancy or gestation period, the mother is transferring all her feelings and thoughts over that period into this child's consciousness. So over that period, if she's in a negative or fearful state, that is what develops the child's mental state. So the child, when it comes out into the world, has had 9 months of that. And if the circumstances carry on to be like that over the next year, there's been an embedded, a personality that the mother had is now introduced into the child. Now, the child doesn't know why it feels it wants to do this or why it wants to do that. But because of what the parent was thinking at that time, let me put it, at that time, because it's a snapshot. 6 months later, or a year later, or 2-3 years later, the mother could be a totally different person. But at the time when she's having the child, what she's going through then becomes embedded as the child's personality. So that child will go through life wanting and thinking and behaving in a certain way, not knowing why it's being compelled to do so. It would think that that's just me, but it isn't you because you didn't formulate that part of yourself. And if you speak to your mother or your father, they could be totally different people and might not remember what they were going through at that time to be able to help you navigate from how they created you and formed your mind at that time. So a lot of the situations you go through life, if you was in a very good and your parents were in a buoyant state, as they are with later children, yeah, because they've worked out the game. They've worked out how to do it. Then the first child or the second child or the third child, they're traveling through different parts of themselves and they're creating a different mindset with each and every child, which will repeat afterwards. So later on, you'll see the differences between brothers and sisters. You'll see the differences within children. You have to go back and be honest with yourself and say, Jesus, how was I back then? Oh man, I was really worried about that job. Or I was really worried about that situation. Or I was worried about that scenario. And I was worried about that across a good period of time until them circumstances were changed. And that child became imprinted with the fears, the anxiety, or the confidence and the buoyancy of what you had over that time. And then everyone will say, well, why are you not like your brother? Because I wasn't made like my brother. Or why are you not quiet like your sister? Because I wasn't made in a quiet way like my sister was. And a lot of these things that you then go on to say are personalities or narcissists or what have yous are the coping mechanisms which we used to get through those situations when we had deficiencies of certain things. I'll say it in the thing, and it's one of my favorite lines, the house you grew up with, the brothers and sisters grow up in the same house, but they don't grow up in the same home. Because it's a totally different experience when they are a child with their parents between the different children. Character's personality is different because the child and the mother could be a go-getter at a certain time and then later on get beaten up by life and not be a go-getter. So the child that comes through that time is not a go-getter. Is quite happy with the simple things of life because that's where the mother was at the time she was having the child. That's why I say what you deem as your personality may not have been your choice. And then you spend the rest of your life from society telling you you should be something else. You should be something other than what you are. And you struggle with it because your mind circuits, when created, were wired to be that way. And you're not aware of it. You're thinking there's something wrong with you. And then you be sitting there going, I can't do that. Why? Because I wasn't built that way. They're given a snapshot at the
Yeah.
very beginning, like a photograph, takes you
Right.
on a day. The next day, everything has changed. And they're traveling through their life through constant change. And we'll explain what it is that when a child is born, the brain is not fully developed. So it takes a whole lifetime, maybe to their 20s, before the child is developed. So they need the two parents there in some sort of capacity. Otherwise, there's going to be certain personality traits in the parent that the child has from the parent at that time, which when the child is out, they're trying to look for the parents to balance that personality. That is theirs. Because if you haven't seen it, have you not noticed that the children reveal personalities that you have, that you hide? You sit there and go, oh, I know where that comes from. And you can't tell the child that, oh, well, yeah, that was when I was going through that. And that's why I behave like that. And then you could tell the child that, and the child could calm down with that personality because it's going to come up because it's in the child. But imagine if you're not there to tell the child. The child grows and can turn that personality into something else and can go look for someone that's going to help them deal with that personality outside of the home. Hence, they're going to go into different groups, go into different places, go into different whatever situations, looking for something to help them make sense of all the different things that are coming out of their mind to want to do. That's why when we talk about, because we're going to lead that all the way into narcissism, where you realize certain things people take is to help them cope when there's nothing around to otherwise help them cope.